people who want amnesty for illegal aliens so they can have more voters, and gentlemen. I'm going to do what I've done several times before, and I'm going to have 9 stories this time demonstrating the illegal immigration insanity going on in this country, and basically it's just completely insane that the Obama administration and the previous administration treated this so flippantly. Obama has actually done worse than Bush, if you can believe that. And not all of this involves Hussein Obama, but it's part of the insane culture we have. And most Democrats want illegal immigration, and they want that so they can have more voters, and so they can play a game of let's see who can hand more out with taxpayer funds, much of it unconstitutional, so they can buy votes. A lot of Republicans want it. Most Republicans don't, but the ones that do either want it so people can hire people for peanuts, below market wages, with or without, minimum or mandate prevailing wage laws, I should say, withstanding or not. They want it for that, or they're going to try to out-Democrat the Democrats on handing out taxpayer funds. Let's begin. Story number 1. This is actually, if it wasn't so insane, I mean, I've never seen anything like this, it would be funny. Actually, it is quite funny. This case comes from San Luis, a Mexican border town in southwestern Arizona. Again, I'll have all the links underneath the video as usual. Mexican border town in southwestern Arizona with about 25,000 mostly Hispanic residents. U.S.-born Alejandrina Cabrera, who graduated from a public high school in Arizona, is running for a spot on the town's council. Yet, she barely speaks English. Her attorneys claim that forcing her off the ballot over the language barrier is a violation of her civil rights. But since 1910, Arizona law has required that the ability to read, write, speak, and understand the English language sufficiently well to conduct the duties of the office without the aid of an interpreter shall be a necessary qualification for all state officers. Additionally, a measure making English the official state language was approved by an overwhelming 74% of Arizona voters in 2007. This week, Yuma County Superior Court Judge John Nelson ordered Alejandrina's name stricken from the March ballot after a lengthy hearing that started in the morning and continued into the night, according to a local newspaper report. The judge heard testimony from a sociolinguistics expert who said Cabrera failed to demonstrate English proficiency, and Cabrera was not able to respond to questions posed to her in English in court proceedings. This would have been a slippery slope they're appealing it. It'd been a slippery slope if it had gotten through. If you can't speak English, get the hell out. I mean, that's the only way. This is insane. Anybody defending her is obviously in the tank for illegal immigration. They don't care about our laws, and they certainly don't care that English is our language. And Mexico would not tolerate this. In fact, a lot of immigrants down there who, if you immigrate to Mexico and become a citizen there, you still can't run for public office. So thankfully, this idiot, this piece of trash, was thrown off the ballot. That's the end of story number 1. Story number 2. Here we go. When burglar Kessler Dufresne became a twice convicted felon, Jack would know a little bit about that. Don't you, Jack? When burglar Kessler Dufresne became a twice convicted felon in 2006, a Bradenton, Florida judge shipped him to prison for 5 years, and because of his convictions, an immigration judge ordered Dufresne deported to his native Haiti. That never happened. Instead, when Dufresne's state prison term was up, Miami immigration authorities in October 2010 released him from custody. 2 months later, North Miami police say he slaughtered 3 people, including a 15-year-old girl, in a murder case that remains as baffling today as it did the afternoon the bodies were discovered. DNA on a rifle found inside the house and cell phone tracking technology later linked Dufresne to the January 2nd, 2011 slayings. But North Miami detectives never got to interrogate him. Just 18 days after the murders, Dufresne shot and killed himself when he was cornered by Manatee County Sheriff deputies in Bradenton after an unrelated break-in and shooting there. And yes, this is a black eye for U.S. authorities. who by law could not detain Dufresne indefinitely after the Hussein Obama administration ordered a temporary halt of deportations to the island nation. The deportations were halted because of the carnage wrought by Haiti's January 2010 earthquake. Well, tell that to the parents of the 15-year-old girl that was murdered. So there you go. Granted, most immigrants aren't out murdering. I think it's funny when leftists say law-abiding illegal aliens. Law-abiding, except for it's a felony to enter after being deported to come back again, and it's at least a civil violation to come here illegally. So what, law-abiding other than the fact that they entered illegally? Is that what you mean? Oh, yeah. And that's end of story number 2. Story number 3. Hussein Obama has elevated the one-time vice president of the National Council of La Raza from White House Director of Intergovernmental Affairs to the more powerful and prestigious post of Domestic Policy Director. That means Cecilia Munoz, a renowned open borders lobbyist in D.C., will be the president's top advisor on domestic issues, and she'll coordinate the policy-making process and supervise the execution of domestic policy in the White House. Clearly, the position wields tremendous power and influence. This can mean only good things for the influential nonprofit she once led and lobbied for, the National Council for La Raza, which promotes itself as the nation's largest Latino civil rights group. Months ago, a Judicial Watch investigation uncovered that the NCLR, which for years has raked in millions of taxpayer dollars, has benefited handsomely from Munoz's quick rise in the Hussein administration. In fact, the group's federal funding has skyrocketed since she got her White House job in 2009. It's gone from $4.1 million in 2009 to $11 million in 2011. A big chunk of money, 60%, came from the Department of Labor, which is headed by a former California congresswoman with close ties to La Raza. That's Hilda Solis. So we have the Hussein administration handing out money by the wheelbarrow, gobs and gobs of taxpayer money to organizations that lobby for amnesty for criminals. And he's putting these people who lobby for the amnesty of criminals in high posts in his administration. That concludes story number 3. Story number 4. Hussein Obama has called for an overhaul of the immigration system that will provide a path to legal status for the 11 million illegal pieces of garbage living in the U.S. But even when the House and Senate were both in Democrat hands, he could not muster the votes needed to pass that plan. The prospects are even weaker now that the House is under Republican control, although I'm a little ambivalent about that. Now, what Hussein's going to do is he's going to, in such a manner here, if an illegal alien has no other criminal record beyond violating America's increasingly meaningless immigration laws, they can claim their absence would cause extreme hardship for spouses, parents, or children, and they get a waiver. And of course, if you purposely come in here with children, and then or no children, have a few anchor babies, a few anchor bastards, then you can, virtually all of them, if you have one child or any kind of dependent or relative that's elderly or any small child, you can claim that that would be a hardship. So as long as you haven't gone out and raped children or murdered, basically what Hussein's doing is he's going to make it impossible to deport anybody unless they have a serious criminal record, other than the fact that they entered this country illegally. And dovetailing with that, we have the results of a federal probe showing that our border security is not very good. More than a decade after the deadliest terrorist attack in U.S. history, federal agents in charge of protecting the nation's ports of entry are not qualified to perform their required duties, and the Department of Homeland Security fails to keep track of officer proficiency. Credibly, it's true that alarming details are outlined in a report issued recently by the Government Accountability Office, the investigative arm of Congress. It essentially says the agency, Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, created after 9/11 to interdict terrorists, criminals, and inadmissible travelers at airports, seaports, and border crossings, is failing miserably to get the job done. Why? Because it's not properly training officers despite annual funding of nearly $10 million and a generous workforce of 20,000 agents. Government efficiency at its best. After the 2001 attacks, 3 separate agencies, U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service, U.S. Customs Service, and the Department of Agriculture's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, were merged to form CBP. The idea was to create one powerful agency to serve on the front lines. However, according to that Government Accountability Office report, they are failing miserably to train officers and to secure our border, which goes perfectly with Obama's plan to basically not deport anybody unless you've killed somebody, unless you're a serious criminal. So if you come here illegally with children and you, other than that, you mind your own business and they catch you and they're going to deport you, you can say, oh, my kids will suffer a hardship because of that. And voila, you don't get deported. That's the end of story number 4. Story number 5, and this takes some balls. New Haven Mayor John DeStefano plans to ask the state legislature to allow illegal immigrants who live in the city. If you may recall, they give municipal ID cards to these clowns already. New Haven Mayor John DeStefano plans to ask the state legislature to allow illegal aliens who live in the city to be able to vote in municipal elections. DeStefano said that the proposal would build a more engaged community and follow the lead of other cities. The Independent reports that New Haven has about 10,000 non-citizen immigrants. So, immigrants who are in the U.S. legally or illegal and cannot vote now would still be able to, they would be unable to vote in state or federal elections, but he wants to allow them to vote in this city election. It's just his way of basically Obama's plan on a city level to see if they can, who can hand out the most perks and most taxpayer funds and allow them to vote. And of course, he's just buying votes and ensuring his re-election. It's easy to see. I mean, there's no other reason he's doing it. It's not because he cares. He's looking out for himself and he's pandering. And that's the end of story number 5. Story number 6. You may remember the Hussein administration going after South Carolina and Arizona and Alabama for their immigration laws, because by golly, the federal government's supposed to enforce immigration laws and states can't be taking measures to do what the federal government is already supposed to do, which doesn't make sense. But putting that aside, however, would Hussein go against what he allows states to violate federal laws? Today, 12 states allow individuals who are in the United States illegally to pay the same in-state tuition rates as legal residents of the state without providing the same rates to others in the country who are here legally. And those states are doing it in direct contravention of federal law. In a new paper, Heritage's Hans von Spakovsky and Charles Stimson explained that in 1996, Congress passed and President Bill the Misogynist Clinton signed into law the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act. Under Section 1623 of the law, state colleges and universities are prohibited from providing in-state tuition rates to illegal aliens on the basis of residence within the state unless the same in-state rates are offered to all citizens in the United States. So we have 12 states doing that, but we don't see Hussein, Obama's administration, harassing them about it. The offenders include California, Texas, New York, Utah, Washington, Oklahoma, Illinois, Kansas, New Mexico, Nebraska, Maryland, and Connecticut. So why isn't the Hussein administration going after them? Well, that's because they're doing what he wants them to do. He does not care. He has no goal. It's not his goal, no intention of enforcing immigration laws. He's going to do enough just to make people think he actually takes it seriously, but he doesn't. So that's why he's not aggressively attacking those states who are offering in-state tuition to illegal aliens when that violates federal law. And that concludes story number 6. And now for story number 7. Established 15 years ago, the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number is a seemingly innocuous administration requirement that the Internal Revenue Service assigns to anyone who is employed and pays taxes. According to the IRS website, the numbers are used for federal tax reporting only, but since ITINs, as they are commonly known, are issued to wage earners regardless of immigration status, they've frequently been abused by aliens who hold them. The ITIN's improper use is once again in the news. The Federation for American Immigration Reform, in its recent analysis entitled Treasury Department Says Illegal Aliens Collect Billions in Tax Credits, revealed that according to the Department of Treasury's Inspector General, more than $4.2 billion in additional child credits were paid out in 2010 to illegal pieces of garbage. In 2005, the payouts totaled $924 million. This program allows low-income earners to claim $1,000 per child credit. The household ends up with no additional tax obligation, as most alien families do not. Shocking! Then $1,000 is paid to them. Pursuant to the Inspector General report, 72% of tax returns filed by ITIN users claim this credit, compared to just 14% of returns filed with Social Security numbers. I should also add, for aliens, the ITIN is an extremely useful vehicle, since the IRS isn't required to share its information with any other federal agency, including immigration authorities. The promise of intra-agency confidentiality allows illegal aliens to file tax returns without fear of deportation. And that concludes story number 7. Story number 8. This is on Hussein Obama's their bloated immigration deportation numbers to make you think that they're actually Hussein Obama actually cares. On October 18th, ICE Director John Morton announced the removal of the largest number of illegal immigrants in the ICE history. That's Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The agency boasted the record-breaking deportation of 396,906 individuals in fiscal year 2011. Yet, according to a recent political article by Representative Lamar Smith, Republican Texas administration numbers appear to be largely smoke and mirrors. Take away the illusion, Smith writes, and the facts show that the administration conjures up its deportation statistics. Fudging of the numbers comes on the heels of recent administration decisions that have served to weaken immigration enforcement in these United States. It appears that DHS has artificially inflated its deportation numbers by including figures on voluntary removals. What this means is that those individuals who agree to be returned to their home countries are counted in the same way as those who are ordered to be deported by the courts, unlike when an individual is removed under deportation orders. Those who leave under voluntary removal can apply to legally return to the U.S. without penalty. So you throw those out, and Hussein's supposed record-breaking number of deportations totally disappears. That does it for story number 8. And now our final story, story number 9. The nation's second-largest county has enacted legislation directing local police to disregard federal government orders to hold arrested illegal immigrants, including those with criminal records or serious felony charges. Hours after commissioners in Illinois' Cook County, which is where the phony Dr. McStupid is from, which includes Chicago, passed a measure, a local newspaper reported that an illegal alien charged with a felony was released after posting bail. The man, Eduardo Sanchez, had previous offenses and got arrested this week. This is back in September of 2011. Got arrested this week after running a red light and assaulting a police officer. Before the famously leftist, Cook County Commission passed its new law, federal authorities would have illegal immigrants like Sanchez held in local jails for up to 48 hours after posting bond or completing their sentences. The extra time gives the feds a cushion to begin deportation proceedings for illegal aliens who pose a threat, except for the illegal aliens who just came here and mind their own business. And now even a group of U.S. senators, this is from November 2011, is pointing this out, that the Hussein administration, they go after places like Alabama, Arizona, South Carolina for trying to make it harder for illegal immigrants to come there and get jobs. But they're ignoring Cook County. In a letter to Napolitano back in November, the Judiciary Committee members, Senators Chuck Grassley, Cornyn, Coburn, and Sessions, cite a recent meeting with a high-ranking ICE official who confirmed that Cook County creates a major problem for enforcement efforts. In fact, the ICE Associate Director of Removal Operations said Cook County's egregious example of sanctuary city policies presents an accident waiting to happen. So there's another example. Hussein's administration ignoring states that offer in-state tuition to illegals, and they're ignoring sanctuary cities, But if you try to keep, like Arizona did, try to enforce federal immigration laws and keep illegals out of there and don't make them welcome, well, you are scorned by the Hussein administration. So there's just 9 more examples of our culture is deteriorating, and there's a lot of people out there who want open borders, and they want amnesty. They want these illegal immigrants rewarded. We liberalized our immigration laws in the 60s. That didn't stop it. That didn't stop people from coming here and taking advantage of all these welfare programs. That's why they're coming. We gave them amnesty under Reagan. Congress did, and Reagan went along with it. That was supposed to be the last time, and here we have the problem again. And they'll do it here, and in 10 years they'll do it again, 10, 15 years. So we need to take a hard line on this. Don't give them any welfare benefits whatsoever. Don't coddle them. Sure, it's going to hurt some people, but it's in the best interest of the U.S. if you want this country to survive. And even if we do fix our illegal immigration problem, I doubt we're going to survive anyway. But we have to do something about that. There's 9 more examples of the stupidity going on here. Better do something about it. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Have a nice day, and don't thank me now.